What if I told you that the 2025 Ferrari was not as bad as everyone thought, but simply no one knew how to handle it? What Frédéric Vasseur found in Hamilton's car after Monza could be the best saved secret of the year. Do you want to know why this discovery can change the whole season? During the weekend of the Italy 2025 Grand Prix, Ferrari arrived with contained expectations. While a specific aerodynamic update had been prepared for Monza, the team knew that the performance of his car had been inconsistent throughout the season. In simulations, the new package promised speed in line and better braking efficiency. But no one inside the garage expected what really happened once the green lights lit on Sunday. After crossing the checkered flag, Hamilton entered boxes without great gestures. No celebration. Without frustration. A neutral gesture which did not anticipate anything. And yet, inside the engineering truck, something began to take shape. Telemetry data did not square with what had been seen on the track. It was as if the SF25 had become, overnight, in another car. When Frédéric Vasseur received the first technical report after the race, he reviewed it with mechanical care. But it soon noticed a positive anomaly. A clean curve. Seriously clean. No spikes. No rebounds. Without the annoying erratic pattern that had characterized SF25 from its debut. And that was just the beginning. The simulation and telemetry department was surprised to observe the perfect longitudinal stability of the low car. Where before there were inconsistencies and dead areas in the rear axle load, there was now continuity. The transition from braking to turn had become soft, precise, almost surgical. And the most disconcerting, the data did not show overheating or thermal oscillations in the rear tires, one of the worst headaches of the team during all 2025. The engineers in the beginning. Was it a sensor mistake? A problem in data collection? But a cross-verification confirmed it. Everything was real. The SF25 had worked with almost perfect behavior. Not because a radical improvement would have been implemented, but for how he had behaved under the hands of Lewis Hamilton. Vasseur then asked for a deeper breakdown. I wanted to understand what I had changed. And it was there that the most important technical revelation of the year occurred. Because the key was not in the aerodynamic package. I was not on the modified floor or in the new beam wing. He was in the way a pilot of 7 world titles had played the car. And that interpretation changed everything. Hamilton not only pilot, felt, adapted. He rescheduled from his instinct the way to manage the car. He changed his entrance to curve, refined the balance without waiting for orders. He modified the behavior of the car outside the initial configuration. He not only responded to the car, he taught him how he should behave. Monza, without anyone noticing it instantly, was the perfect laboratory. The low-load layout, with its strong braking and soft support curves, allowed this different approach to reveal a version of the SF25 that until then was believed unattainable. And that made the whole team have to rethink an awkward question. Was the car always good but nobody knew how to drive it? The revelation was silent. He did not go to the media. There were no communications. But inside Ferrari, something had been unlocked. Vasseur knew it. That was the exact moment in which the team approach changed irreversibly. To understand why Hamilton's data in Monza baffled the Ferrari technical team so much, first we must observe an aspect that, in the era of telemetry and predictive algorithms, is still impossible to model: the human piloting style. And in Monza, the combination between low aerodynamic load and long lines made the car a difficult monster to handle for anyone who tried an aggressive acceleration or a traditional race line. Hamilton did not. Instead of fighting the car, he guided him. He adjusted his line, his sequence of marches, even his way of taking the pianos. Invisible details for the camera, but essential in performance. The engineers soon noticed another curiosity. The areas of greatest thermal stress in the brakes, usually visible in infrared thermal analysis, were surprisingly cold. Not because Hamilton stopped less, but because he did it more precisely. His transition from the throttle pedal to the brake was cleaner, more decisive, with less dead time between them, which generated less transfer of erratic mass and therefore, less instability in the front suspension. This fine style cannot be taught. It cannot easily replicate. It cannot be modeled. Therefore, for Ferrari, the surprise was double. They not only discovered that the SF25 had more potential than they imagined, they discovered that this potential could only emerge under very specific human conditions. And these conditions were summed up in one person, Lewis Hamilton. From there, the technical approach of the team changed. Ferrari stopped trying to correct the car, and he began to adapt him to who piloted him better. It was a paradigm investment. It was no longer about developing a universal car, but about building a technical environment where Hamilton's talent could operate without friction. A decision that, although risky, could be the only realistic way to fight for the championship in a season where McLaren and Red Bull had already shown very different weapons. And so, without saying it openly, Ferrari acknowledged something that years ago did not dare to admit, that his greatest strength was no longer in Maranello, but in the cockpit of car number 44. Monza had ended. The podium was already history. But in Maranello, something fundamental was brewing. An official statement was not necessary. Not a crisis meeting. Because the conclusion that was detached from the data analysis was not an opinion, it was evidence. The SF25 was not a failed project. It was an incomplete car. And what completed it was not a new piece or an aerodynamic solution, but a pilot who knew how to read it better than his own designers. Frédéric Vasseur immediately understood what this meant. For more than a year, Ferrari had been investing resources to redesign his car, looking for universal solutions. More stable aerodynamics, more indulgent suspension, greater resistance to graining. But Monza changed the question. It was no longer about how to fix the car. It was how to replicate what Hamilton had done. This awareness was a blow of humility for the team. Throughout the modern era, Ferrari has been a team that, even in its moments of greatest crisis, hoped that the car was the core of success. That the results depended on the machine, not on the human being. But what happened in Italy was a masterclass for the importance of the pilot's interpretation. And that forced to change the strategy immediately. The first internal repercussions soon arrived. The simulation department was restructured. Now, instead of focusing solely on developing predictive models, human variables were incorporated based on Hamilton's direct inputs. Custom driving profiles were created for each pilot, allowing set-to-point decisions to no longer depend on numerical logic, but on the sensory behavior of the car under real pressure. Even the work of the track engineers was transformed. Feedback sessions were no longer closing reports. They became active tactical discussions. A new post-GP review routine was created in which Hamilton participated directly with the technical team to review his return style. What was previously delegated to the simulator was now learned on the track. But perhaps the greatest impact was philosophical. Ferrari began accepting a truth that had avoided for years, that a Formula One car should not be just fast. It must be compatible with your pilot. And in this case, the car should evolve along with Hamilton. This broke with years of internal tradition, where the pilot adjusted to the car, not vice versa. This time, Ferrari opted on the contrary. And that bet was already beginning to generate track consequences. On later weekends, the SF25 showed a growing trend to behave more stable, more predictable, at least in Hamilton. Although Leclerc remained competitive, the differences between the two began to be visible in how each managed the tire wear, braking efficiency and precision in high-speed curves. The team, for the first time in years, was revolving around a driving style, not to a universal simulation. This discovery in Monza was not just a technical anecdote in the 2025 season. It was a silent but transcendental turn. He revealed something that everyone knows but that few dare to accept publicly, that above engineering, aerodynamics, or boxes, there is still a variable that can make all the difference: the pilot. And in this case, Lewis Hamilton not only showed that he is still one of the best at the wheel, he showed that its value goes beyond the times by return or the past titles. His reading of the car, his ability to adapt, to reinterpret the signals that the SF25 gave him, that is what a difficult car turned into a competitive tool. He did not change the hardware. He changed the language with which he understood it. But this story does not end there. Because if Ferrari has managed to find an open door towards real competitiveness, he also faces a new challenge: how to make this discovery not exclusive to Hamilton. How to translate that synergy into a sustainable structure for the rest of the season. And, above all, how to prevent this individual technical advantage from becoming a source of internal imbalance. Meanwhile, other teams observe. Red Bull continues with his own ghosts. McLaren defends his leadership with constancy. Mercedes tries to rebuild step by step. But in silence, Ferrari is redefining his approach. They no longer compete for speed. They compete for understanding. And in that field, what happened in Monza can be hardly the beginning of an internal revolution. So now I throw the question to you. Do you think Ferrari will do well to develop his car around Hamilton's style, even if that leaves Leclerc at a disadvantage? Or should I continue betting on a more neutral approach that benefits both of them equally? Are we facing Ferrari's renaissance? Or before a new dependence that can become a double-edged sword? Leave me your opinion in the comments.